Hey guys, welcome back to IM Movies. Today we'll be looking at the 2018 Korean action sci-fi movie titled Psychokinesis. But before we jump into the details, make sure to show us some love by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Now let's get right into it. Rumi, a beautiful and hardworking young lady, manages a thriving fried chicken restaurant in a bustling shopping arcade in the market area. Her father abandoned the family when she was only 10 years old, leaving her mother to support them by selling accessories on the streets. With her mother's help, Rumi has diligently built the restaurant from the ground up to its current success. However, things take a downturn for Rumi when a group of thugs raids her restaurant one night. A construction company named Taesan has secured a contract to construct a large-scale shopping mall for tourists, requiring the demolition of local businesses in the area. Despite this, Taesan refuses to compensate the previous occupants or provide them with time to relocate. Instead, they enlist a mob-run construction company to forcibly evict the local shop owners and demolish the shopping arcade. As the mob storms into Rumi's restaurant, she attempts to stop them, but they overpower her, dragging her out and handling her roughly. Moments later, her mother arrives and tries to intervene, but the mob pushes her aside. In a desperate attempt to scare off the thugs, Rumi's mother drives her van towards them, crashing into a wall in the process. Some of the thugs forcibly pulled her from the van, causing her to hit her head on the sidewalk and lose consciousness. Fearing the worst, the thugs retreat, leaving Rumi shocked and crying as she kneels beside her unconscious mother. Fortunately, other shop owners in the neighborhood come to her aid, helping to take her mother to the hospital. Upon arrival, emergency surgery is performed on Rumi's mother, but tragically, she doesn't survive the fall's impact, leaving Rumi devastated. Meanwhile, a meteorite crashes into the mountains, contaminating the spring water in a nearby town. The following morning, Rumi's father, Seok-heon, unknowingly becomes the first to drink the contaminated spring water on his way to work. Recoiling from its unpleasant taste, he alerts others to the water's condition. Arriving at the bank where he works as a security guard, Seok-heon strikes up a friendly conversation with the cleaner lady and offers her coffee, which excites her. When he opens his drawer, she spots a couple of instant coffees and questions how he manages to afford them. Seok-heon explains that he didn't buy them, rather he obtained them from the bank. Surprised, the lady remarks that she didn't realize it was permissible for her to take them, assuming they were for the bank's customers only. Seok-heon even shows her the toilet paper he took from the restroom, reassuring her that nobody minds if she takes it. Curious if he's still drinking coffee, the lady inquires, to which Seok-heon responds by complaining of a stomach upset, possibly from the spring water he drank earlier. She advises him to avoid spring water and opt for tap water instead. Later that evening, as he heads home after his shift, Seok-heon witnesses the cleaner being reprimanded by a superior who discovered many instant coffees in her possession. Despite witnessing the scene, Seok-heon feigns ignorance and walks away. While having a drink at a bar, he blames the cleaner for lacking tact by taking multiple coffees at once. Suddenly, he experiences excruciating pain, doubling over and clutching his stomach. As he grimaces in pain, nearby objects appear to move on their own. Once the pain subsides, Seok-heon, unaware of the chaos he's caused, is asked to leave the bar by the owner, who assumes he's drunk and causing trouble. Returning to his cramped and unkempt apartment, Seok-heon sprawls on the floor and retrieves a cigarette. As he reaches for a lighter on the floor, it mysteriously flies into his hand, startling him. His phone rings, interrupting his thoughts. Rumi calls to deliver the devastating news of her mother's passing. Moments later, Seok-heon arrives late to the funeral, failing to recognize his daughter at first glance. Rumi and Seok-heon engage in an awkward conversation when Min, the president of the mob-run construction company, and his thugs crash the funeral. Rumi, triggered by their presence, demands they leave, promising to see him in court. Min, however, claims her mother had an accident while driving, infuriating Rumi and the others, and leading to a physical confrontation. Their lawyer, Jung-hyun, intervenes before the situation escalates, urging them to let the law handle it. Min offers condolence money, but Rumi rejects it, hurling it back and ordering them to depart. After their departure, Jung-hyun introduces himself to Rumi's father and takes him to Rumi's shop. He silently surveys the damage with a somber expression. Before leaving, he questions Seok-heon about his relationship with Rumi, warning him against leading her on and then abandoning her. Seok-heon walks home feeling downcast. Along the way, he attempts to smoke a cigarette to ease his mood, but recalls his estrangement from his daughter and angrily flings the cigarette, causing a pile of waste to scatter. This sparks his memory of the peculiar incident with the lighter earlier that evening, prompting him to rush home to confirm his suspicion. Upon arriving home, he places the lighter on the floor and reaches out his hands towards it, watching in amazement as the lighter flies into his palms. Using his mind, he makes every item on the floor levitate midair, screaming in both excitement and shock. The following day, Seok-hyun arrives at work earlier than usual, surprising his colleague. Seok-hyun asks him if magicians make good money. Though the question seems ridiculous, his colleague reveals that the club down the street has stunt performers who earn a good amount of money every night. Later that day, Rumi lays her mother's body to rest in the cemetery alcove before returning to the shopping arcade alongside Jung-hyun and her father. She joins the other shop owners who are camping at the arcade to discuss their next steps. Upon arrival, the shop owners complain that the thugs are still lurking around and wreaking havoc in all the buildings. Jung-hyun calms them down, assuring them that he'll meet with the prosecutor the following day to discuss the way forward. Rumi suggests that the men stand guard that night to fend off the thugs if they come back and try to vandalize the buildings. However, Seok-hyun doesn't think it'll make a difference, as they don't stand a chance against the mob. Mr. Kim and his wife suggest preparing weapons to fight back, but Jung-hyun advises against it, as it may be used against them. If they want to win the case, they have to keep a clean slate. Seok-hyun is indifferent to the whole idea, and asserts that they're all wasting their time and towing a dangerous line. He tells them bluntly that they are fighting a lost battle, adding that they should find another source of livelihood, which enrages them. He tries to change Rumi's mind, but she asks him to leave. Later that evening, Seok-hyun visits the nightclub his colleague had mentioned earlier that day to apply. He demonstrates his powers, and the owner hires him immediately, leaving him excited. The next day, Rumi and Jung-hyun meet with the prosecutor. During the discussion, the prosecutor informed them that an autopsy report would not be enough to sue Taesan Construction Company and that they needed more evidence. Jung-hyun shares that the van Rumi's mother was driving had a camera, but the owner of the van claims the camera is fake. The prosecutor believes Taesan must have bribed him. After the meeting, Jung-hyun informs Rumi that he's going to meet the van owner, and she suggests going with him, but he asks her not to worry. Rumi returns to the arcade and sees her father, who's been desperately trying to reach her, but she ignores him and drives past him. She informs her curious neighbors of the meeting outcome. Her father walks up to her and asks to speak with her privately. Once alone, Seok-hyun suggests that Rumi come live with him, promising to earn enough to take care of her and send her to college. He then tries to impress Rumi by showing her some tricks. Rumi isn't impressed but is rather embarrassed and asks him to stop. Seok-hyun continue, and proceeds to show her a more intense trick, making her scream furiously for him to stop. He pleads with Rumi to give him a chance to play the fatherly role he cowardly ran away from, apologizing for her mother's death. In his defense, he had to separate from them after his father left a huge debt on him so they wouldn't suffer the repercussions. Despite his excuses, Rumi still sees him as irresponsible, and expresses displeasure over his sudden concern after all these years, and his attempts to ruin her plans to get her life back. Seok-hyun walks home looking downcast. However, on his way, he runs into Min and his thugs getting into a vehicle and heading towards the arcade, prompting him to quickly turn back. Back at the arcade, the shop owners are alerted by some of the men keeping guard on the roof. While a few leave through the back door to get the police, the rest barricades the entrance to keep the thugs away. The shop owners are no match for the mob as there are too many of them. They push through the barricades, harassing and assaulting them while Min's dimwit assistant records the chaos. Seok-hyun soon arrives, tossing and throwing off the mob with his superpowers, much to everyone's shock and dismay. The mob, seeing their defeat, attempts to run away, but Min orders them to attack. They hesitate, and one of them lunges towards the shop owners, uses him to showcase more of his superpowers, amazing everyone. He seems to be enjoying himself when Mr. Kim's wife walks in with the police, abruptly ending the show. They are taken to the police station for a statement. When asked what happened, both parties start blaming each other and expressing their frustrations at the same time. The officer orders them to keep quiet when he can't bear the noise and confusion anymore. Min tells him that he has evidence, and plays the recording of Seok-hyun using his powers. However, due to no physical contact or outright attack, the officer dismisses the video. With no evidence for an arrest and unsure whose side to take, the officer sends them away. The shop owners leave, feigning anger, only to burst into laughter outside the station and celebrate their victory. They appreciate Seok-hyun and are hopeful they have an upper hand over Min and his thugs. However, Rumi isn't impressed by her father's unexplained powers. Later that night, Seok-hyun, along with some men and Jung-hyun, decides to create a stronger barricade around the market to protect the local businesses. Seok-hyun uses his power to teleport different metals around the area to the arcade's entrance, including the car of Min's thugs that are camping outside, prompting them to sprint off in fear. Jung-hyun, witnessing his powers for the first time, is amazed and asks if it is magic. Seok-hyun explains that it is surprising to him too, perhaps the powers were given to him by Rumi's mother to be a better father. Back at Taesan Construction, the thugs return to Min, expressing their desire to quit after their experience that night. However, Min encourages them to stick together. Just then, Min receives a call from Taesan's director requesting a meeting, leaving him wondering what the problem might be. Later, Rumi, accompanied by Jung-hyun and the other local shop owners, visits the arcade to see the incredible work Seo-kyeon has done. Jung-hyun assures Rumi that her father cares about her and has been against her plan because he fears for her safety and doesn't want her to get hurt. The next day, Rumi is interviewed by a local channel and Mr. Kim's wife doubts it'll make a difference, but her husband believes otherwise, suggesting it may go viral on the internet and sway public opinion, which could help their case. Mr. Kim asks Rumi to have lunch with her father, but she declines, claiming to be busy. Seo-kyeon persuades her and she reluctantly agrees. While waiting for their order, Rumi expresses concern that Seo-kyeon's powers may be affecting his health, advising him to see a doctor. Seo-kyeon tells her he feels fine, but Rumi insists he sees a doctor. Later, Min and his accountant meet with Hong, the director of Taesan Construction, and a psycho. She welcomes them warmly, but displays a scary vibe, making Min and his man uneasy. She orchestrates a fake assault on Min, and records it to have leverage against potential lawsuits, as instructed by her legal team. After the drama, Hong inquires about the progress of the eviction, and Min shares his challenges, revealing that Rumi's father turns out to be the greatest roadblock. Min also mentions that Rumi's mother died during their raid. Hong assures Min that she'll take care of everything. Meanwhile, the shop owners watch the news and see a video of Seo-kyeon using his powers. A so-called weapons expert claims Seo-kyeon is using special shockwave weapons from North Korea. The next morning, 2 officers arrive at the arcade, claiming Seo-kyeon has been accused of theft by the bank where he works, and they need him to make some clarifications. He obliges, believing it must be a minor misunderstanding. Unbeknownst to him, the arrest was orchestrated by Hong to remove him from the arcade and keep him in police custody. Rumi calls Jung-hyun to update him on recent events, and he assures her he'll join them shortly. After ending the call with Rumi, he receives another from the prosecutor, who informs him that one of Min's thugs has confessed to killing Rumi's mother. This complicates their plans to sue the Taesan company. Furthermore, the prosecutor reveals that Taesan's director Hong instructed Min to close down his company, create the illusion of ending her contract with his company, reopen under a new name, and draw up a new contract to legally demolish the shopping arcade. With this knowledge of Hong's scheme and her influence over the police, Jung-hyun urges Rumi to consider giving up and fleeing the site. However, as they witness a squad of policemen approaching the arcade with a bulldozer, Rumi adamantly declares they can't back down and must fight to the last. Min orders some policemen to evict the shop owners from the building so they can start demolishing the arcade. Meanwhile, Hong visits Seo-kyeon at the station and threatens to mark him dangerous due to his powers. However, she makes him an offer to work for Taesan, as his powers will prove useful to the company. Seo-kyeon isn't moved by her threat or offer, but emphasizes their sole interest in the compensation due to them. Hong gives Seo-kyeon her card to call her when he makes up his mind. Back at the arcade, Rumi and the other shop owners resort to using Molotov cocktails to fend off the assailants, but it proves ineffective as they advance with an excavator to dismantle the barricade, prompting them to flee. However, before they can escape, the excavator hits the barricade, causing Rumi and Mr. Kim to fall. Rumi gets up and sees Mr. Kim stuck. She manages to free him, but as they attempt to escape, the barricade explodes, throwing them off. Luckily, they escape without injury, and with the help of others, they make their way inside. Rumi and the other shop owners lock themselves in one of the shops at the arcade, while Min's thugs attempt to break in and force them out. Suddenly, Rumi receives a call from Jung-hyun, warning them of potential arrest if caught. He instructs them to reach the roof and wait for him. As they flee, the thugs chase after them. Back at the station after Hong's departure, Seo-kyeon is being escorted back to his cell when he catches a glimpse of the chaos unfolding at the arcade on TV. Curious and worried, he tries to gather more information, but the TV is quickly turned off. Seo-kyeon notices someone making a call and uses his powers to retrieve the phone. Learning about the dire situation at the arcade, and fearing for his daughter's safety, he breaks his handcuffs and the cell bars, disorienting everyone present. With zeal, he leaps out of the window and lands outside, leaving Hong impressed. Before he lifts, Seo-kyeon destroys Hong's car as a show of defiance, then takes flight using his newly discovered ability, soaring towards the arcade to save the day. However, he crash lands on his way, still getting accustomed to his new ability. But he doesn't give up as he takes a few rocky leaps before finally defying gravity and staying afloat. Rumi and the others reach the roof, where Mr. Kim attempts to lock the exit, but the thugs overpower him. They attack him and push him over the railings. He desperately clings to a piece of railing for dear life. The cops spray water on Mr. Kim, causing him to slip. Seo-kyeon arrives just in time, catching him midair. He places Mr. Kim safely on one of the roofs before returning to rescue the others. Navigating through the cloudy smoke from the fires, Seo-kyeon collides with a crane used by the cops to access the roof. Quickly diverting, he leaps into a nearby building through a window. He is confronted and assaulted by a group of policemen inside, but he overpowers them and makes his way out. Rumi and the others are running frantically on the rooftop when Jung-hyun suddenly appears and signals them to join him with a ladder he placed between the buildings. However, Rumi gets apprehended by the cops in the confusion, prompting them to chase after the remaining group, assaulting them along the way. Seo-kyeon soon arrives and intervenes, incapacitating the cops and rescuing the shop owners. Using his powers, he swiftly teleports them to the other side. Meanwhile, a suspension cable on the crane snaps midair, causing it to tilt and one of the officers to slip. Luckily, he holds onto a chain. Rumi attempts to assist him, but she struggles to pull him up alone. Seeing Rumi's predicament, Seo-kyeon uses his powers to stabilize the crane. With the help of other cops, they manage to hoist the officer to safety. However, as Seo-kyeon tries to secure the crane to the roof, it malfunctions, causing Rumi to fall off. Reacting swiftly, Seo-kyeon follows after her, catching her just moments before she hits the ground. He apologizes to her for everything, and then hands her over to her friends, urging Jung-hyun to take care of her before he departs, causing Rumi to break down. Seo-kyeon lands before Min and throws him a destabilizing punch before surrendering himself to the police officers, who arrest him cautiously. 4 years later, Seo-kyeon is released from jail and picked up by Jung-hyun. During their journey home, Seo-kyeon inquires about Rumi, to which Jung-hyun excitedly reveals that he and Rumi are getting married. Seo-kyeon makes a stop at the location where Rumi's shop used to stand. It is now an empty plot of land, appearing very different to Seo-kyeon's eyes. It turns out that Tae-san had inflated the development cost, possibly to recover the money spent on buying everyone out, resulting in a construction delay. Later in the evening, they arrive at Rumi's restaurant named Superpower Chicken, in representation of her father's power. At the same time, all of Rumi's friends who were having dinner there are excited to see him. When Rumi sees her father, she playfully shouts at him to help her out. So Seo-kyeon uses his power to lift beer mugs and serve them to the customers, leaving them amazed and excited. For the first time, Rumi smiles at seeing her father use his powers. And this is where our story ends. If you'd like to see us recap any other movies or topics you have in mind, just drop a comment and let us know. And don't forget to hit the like button, share this recap, and subscribe to stay updated for the next one. Until next time.